morning, and welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the spirit. We are glad you are here in the sanctuary or anywhere in the world, especially those visiting or returning after a time away. I am Lori Strom, one of your representatives on our Board of Trustees. If you are a visitor, we hope you talk with our welcome team or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about us. Our guest book or online contact page will help you get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church. We're still dealing with the pandemic, though the risk of severe illness is considered low. If you're unvaccinated or would prefer a mask, our ushers have some and we're happy to share. After worship, we'll have fellowship in Fisk Hall and through Zoom. If you need help finding your way to Fisk Hall for our fellowship hour, any member of the church will be happy to guide you. Just look for someone wearing a Universalist Church name tag, or if you forgot yours, just follow the crowd. You can find the link for Zoom in your weekly news or a Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly news, please sign up for it on our website. And now, I invite you to take a moment to make your mobile phone silent, turn off your email, and put away your keyboards and settle in for worship.
Good morning. For all of you who are at home watching, please grab your chalice or a candle and light your chalice with us. Today, we light this chalice to add our flame, with the light from the hundreds of chalices being lit this day throughout the world. We look upon this light and know that so many have gone before us carrying this very light. So many are among us keeping this light burning brightly and with a vibrancy that will not be extinguished. As we celebrate this month of October, set aside to value all the creativity, energy, questioning, loving, doubting, sexuality, and feelings that build up each one of our days within the LGBTQI+ community. May we always keep this flame alive and well. Our opening hymn is hymn 325 in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body or in spirit, in the sanctuary or wherever you are, to sing together. Hymn number 325, Love Makes a Bridge. Covenant as printed in your order of worship. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
I am going to be reading from a book this morning called I Am Me, a book of authenticity. And it is by Susan Verdi, and the art is by Peter H. Reynolds. What the authors say about the book is this: sometimes we hide who we really are to conform to the way we think we are supposed to be in the world. Sometimes we compare ourselves to others and feel we don't fit in, but when we realize we are someone to be celebrated and we proudly live out and loud our true selves, we can make our unique mark on the world and share our joy. So, before we begin, the authors provide an exercise in the back of the book that I think is marvelous to bring us to a centered place. I'll read the directions and then we'll do the exercise together. So with an inhale, you say to yourself a phrase that I will say to you. And then with an exhale, you say that phrase out loud. So we're all going to inhale. I'll speak while we inhale. We'll take a pause. We'll exhale and say and repeat back what I just said. So we breathe in and say, I am kind. We breathe out and say, I am kind. We breathe in and think, I am beautiful. We breathe out and say, I am beautiful. We breathe in and think, I am miraculous. We breathe out and say, I am miraculous. We breathe in and say, I am important. We breathe out and say, I am important. We breathe in and say, I am just right, exactly as I am. We breathe out and say, I am just right, exactly as I am. Could I have all of the kiddos come down here with me?
sing all of those joyous, sparkful people out. Hymn number 413 in your hymnal. I would like to introduce Scout Crafts, who will have a few words to say with you this morning. But I've also been asked by the Stewardship Committee to remind folks that this is Stewardship Month, besides being LGBTQ Month. And we are behind. We're behind in contributions compared to last year at this time. So think about that as you travel home today and do something about it.
Hello, my name is Scout. I've been coming to this church for almost exactly a year, and I did have a very hard time trying to figure out what to write. They sent me a really nice information deck on how to write a compelling story, but I kept asking myself, like, what is my story? What are the plot points that brought me to this church? And the problem is that it was really straightforward for me. I said, hey, I think I'd like to start going to church. And my wonderful partner, Jake, said, well, I don't really believe in God, but I grew up in a UU church, and that seemed sort of rad. And so then we looked at a map and saw that we were like just 5 minutes away from this one. And so we showed up on a random Sunday last October. So I don't think my story is really about how I got here, but what kept me coming here, because I have been to other churches. I was baptized as an Episcopalian, and I stopped going to that because I was 7, couldn't drive, and my parents stopped going. And then I spent 3 years in a Lutheran church, and I chose Lutheran because it was in walking distance from my house, and then I stopped going because it was no longer in walking distance from my house. But Jake and I moved to Bristol a couple of months ago, and so this church is no longer in walking distance, so I don't think it's just the convenience that makes us keep showing up every Sunday. When I was in Philadelphia, I did try a couple of different Bible study groups, and I think the reason that I left those is a little bit closer to the reason why I keep coming here. I don't know what denomination those Bible study groups were, but I do know there were parts of me that weren't allowed to show up there. So I'm gender non-binary. I do use they, them pronouns. I chose the name Scout for myself. From what I can tell, my gender is mostly related to the fact that I really like this type of collar. I have so many shirts with this collar. But that part of me is not always welcome everywhere I go. And then also, my mental health has resulted in me sometimes making some unhealthy and unwise decisions. And I've come to accept those are important parts of making me who I am today. But my refusal to feel guilt or shame, the fact that I just won't feel bad for who I was, that's not always welcome either. But I have been in a lot of Dungeons and Dragons groups, and those are notoriously welcoming and non-judgmental area, like groups of people, and I did quit those. So I don't think it's just the welcoming part of this church that makes me want to be a member either. When Raj first asked me to do this speaking thing, I couldn't really have articulated why I chose membership. I became a member because it felt like the next logical step, but why did it feel that way? And then a month ago, the UU Under 40 group started meeting, and I went to it, and I was also asked to keep track of the coloring station at the birthday batch. And I also taught my first Sunday school group last week. And I realized that I value this church because this church values me. I think this church is useful because this church thinks I'm useful. I'm a social worker in a hospital setting, and 5 days out of the week, I work with very behaviorally complex children, and they are experiencing crisis. On a daily basis, it feels like I'm crashing headlong into a concrete wall of structural barriers. Children and their families who are unable to access the resources they need, oftentimes because those resources just don't exist. It's exhausting, and there are days that I go home convinced that there is nothing I can do to make a difference. This church offers me an opportunity to remember that I can be useful. When I'm here, I'm not operating in an official advocacy capacity. I'm not expected to be some sort of expert in navigating the world. All that this church asks of me is to be a pair of hands or a voice in the crowd. I mean, in the last month, I have been asked to facilitate coloring on 2 separate occasions. That is very doable for me, and that is something I can help with. This church has made me feel safe, welcomed, and accepted. All of those things would be enough to convince me to keep coming back. But to convince me to be a member, I needed to feel useful. When I first started the membership process earlier this year, I thought I might be able to contribute. And as I stand here today, I'd like to think that I have. I contribute with my time, my friendship, and my monetary pledge, and I would encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Scout. The voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for our shared work as a religious community, is a spiritual practice for all of us. By offering our time, talent, and treasure to this community, we help one another, our friends, and the wider community of this congregation. As part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world that brings us ever closer to creating the beloved community. This month, we share our offering with RIP Medical Debt. RIP Medical Debt is a nonprofit organization started by 2 former debt collection professionals as a way to help people become freed from medical debt by purchasing large-scale bundled medical debt and then relieving that debt. In short, paying it off, so that people are freed from being under that debt. Their mission is to end debt and be, 1, a source of justice in the unjust healthcare finance system, 2, a unique solution for patient-centered healthcare providers, and 3, a moral force for systemic change. Thus far, they have helped over 3 million people and families eradicate over $5.3 billion in medical debt. To give electronically, please use the QR codes on your order of worship, the links in the description for this service, or those on our Fern Street website to make your donation to our offering. Here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. Please rise in body or spirit as we speak our congregational reading, number 576, a litany of restoration. You will speak the words together in Roman type, and I will speak the words in italics. If recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and I am white, it will not matter. If you are female and I am male, it will not matter. If you are older and I am younger, it will not matter. If you are progressive and I am conservative, it will not matter. If you are straight and I am gay, it will not matter. If you are Christian and I am Jewish, it will not matter. If we join spirits as brothers and sisters, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter. In this spirit, we build community and move toward restoration. Let us now join in singing our doxology. Please be seated. This morning, Sophie E. asked this from us, and this is a quote that she sent me 2 days ago. My assailant, Nicholas Gothberg, will be sentenced on Monday, 10/23. I wish for strength in the presence of the Spirit of life, that I may deliver my impact statement well, and he may receive the maximum sentence, 2 years in jail and 3 years of probation. Prayers and messages of solidarity via text or email would be deeply appreciated. My contact information is in the church directory. Judy B. asks us to hold in our collective prayers all those who have been sent on the U.S. aircraft carriers into the Middle East waters, especially her family member. She wants us to pray for the safety and support for all those on these ships in the waters. The now Reverend Diane Marie Elaine Daniels wishes to send thanks to everyone who supported her as she prepared for her ordination yesterday afternoon. It was a wonderful celebration and one she will hold very special for quite some time to come. Finally, in our wider world, may we hold all those who are experiencing war in their day-to-day living. We ask that peace may not just be a hope, but an actual reality that is being sought and worked towards in all war-torn regions. Now, let us allow these spoken words, as well as all those held in each of our hearts, to be present with us in our shared moments of silence. O Holy One, bless our prayers, internal, external, all that we ask for, all that you can provide. May it be so.
Our first reading this morning is from A Queer History of the United States by Michael Bronski. I want to start my long meditation on LGBT history by suggesting that there are two crucial concepts to consider when examining LGBT history in the United States. The first is that the contributions of people whom we may now identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender are integral and central to how we conceptualize our national history. Without the work of social activists, thinkers, writers, and artists such as Weewa, Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, Ethel Waters, Roy Cohn, Cherry Moraga, and Lily Tomlin, and so many others, we would not be the country that we are today. The second and slightly counterintuitive key concept is that LGBT history does not exist. In singling out LGBT people and their lives, we are depriving them of their centrality in the broader sweep and breadth of American history. The impulse is to focus on lives that have been shunned, marginalized, censored, ignored, and hidden in the past, and in previous histories of the United States has been revolutionary in the growth of a vibrant LGBT community. If LGBT history resides in the queer space of being both enormously vital and non-existent, can we even write and speak about it? How will this history resonate with our understanding of our own contemporary and historic lives? We have been taught in our nation's fairly unimaginative educational system that history is a stable, linear narrative with a fixed set of facts: names, dates, political actions, political ideas, laws passed and repealed. In The Didactic of Sex, Shulamith Firestone writes that this conventional way of understanding the historical process as a series of snapshots is limiting and ultimately unhelpful. History, she states, is the world as process, a natural flux of action and reaction, of opposites yet inseparable and interpenetrating. History is a movie rather than a snapshot. As Firestone argues, history is a movie, not a Hollywood film with a traditional narrative, but rather an experimental film that presents a reality that makes sense only when we appreciate its intrinsic narrative complexity. History is an ongoing process through which we understand and define ourselves and our lives. Our second reading is adapted from an address given by President Joel N. Lohr, the president of Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. He delivered these remarks at the annual dinner of the Connecticut Council for Interreligious Understanding held on October 10th, 2023, so hot off the presses. The words, "love thy neighbor," are well worn, and some might even say cliche. The idea of neighbors and the meaning of the word love, it seems to me, both seem straightforward. And yet, their exact meaning can be very complicated. My premise tonight is that although the ideas of love and neighbor seem self-evident, they are also more complex than we often realize. I will also suggest that we, and I include myself in this, are not always as good as we may think we are in loving rightly and without exception. Even those of us who believe in our bumper stickers and yard signs indeed serve in the important work of interreligious organizations. In short, my message tonight is that love thy neighbor is hard work, and at times complicated, but is fundamentally important. Many of the great religious traditions of the world hold the idea of love thy neighbor. Baha'i, Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, Judaism, Sikhism, and Unitarian Universalism. But loving one's neighbor is not actually all warm and fuzzies. Loving thy neighbor goes deep and involves many responsibilities. Are we making enough space for conservatives in our work? Are we working hard enough to love those who truly think, pray, and vote differently than we do? I don't know the answer or the solution to this, but I offer this as my heartfelt challenge to us all, myself included, to really make a difference in whom we love and how we love them. If our work is to be meaningful and make a real difference, those who support AOC and the Squad need to find some way to express love toward those who think the election was stolen and support Donald Trump. Those who believe we all worship the same God need to find ways to love those who think there is only one religion that worships the true God, their God. Those who believe that love is love and are gender fluid need to find ways to love those who have very different views of marriage, human sexuality, and gender. Don't get me wrong, these things are true in reverse. Both sides need to love each other. But I use these examples, and I count myself among those in the audience tonight who would benefit from them, at the very least wrestling with this message. Love thy neighbor is indeed simple, right, and clear. The idea of neighbor should have no exceptions, and love can be full of wonderful emotions and personal fulfillment. But love of neighbor can also be difficult and at times complicated, forcing us to examine our own prejudices. It also involves more than feelings, as it often requires a lot of action and responsibility.
One of my dearest colleagues, the Reverend Gene Pupke, who had been one of my mentors as I began my own ministerial journey in 2007, noted as I prepared for my first sermon, "Speak about something that you feel passionate about, Joy." And so I begin my sharing with you today acknowledging that honoring this month of convergence of several aspects of the LGBTQI plus community and experience is definitely a locus I feel very, very passionate about. I am passionate about what this service has offered you to digest and explore. I am passionate about equality and about what strong, caring communities can empower when they work toward equality for all. I wanted this service to be filled with color, not just the color of banners and t-shirts and candles and ribbons and balloons, although I would have loved to have decorated this place with all of those things, but with attention to the colors of the life, your life, that you surround yourselves with and with one another. You have heard several voices in this service, besides our wonderful guest choir and our own choir. You have heard from outstanding writers and children's book author and illustrator. I am passionate about the history of my LGBTQI community. I was part of the programming and directing of the second Lesbian and Gay Divinity School Conference at Harvard Divinity School back in 1977. History is always a convergence of voices, and today I wish to call each one of you to once again celebrate that convergence, as well as its contextual nature. The vast majority of today's music that we all have heard and absorbed, and we still have another piece to listen to, was written by one of the first classical musicians to speak openly about being a gay person, Ned Rorem. Ned not only wrote musical compositions that number beyond 500, by the way, but he kept diaries of his experiences in bringing music to fruition. And his diaries are fabulous, by the way. So if you get a chance, look up the diary. His diary from Paris, his diary from Spain, marvelous pieces. Ironically, I discovered he was also born in Indiana, a fellow Hoosier, who spent most of his life with his partner between his apartment in New York City and his place in Nantucket. The work Ned considered his magnum opus was written in 1997, and it's titled Evidence of Things Not Seen. Often in the process of becoming all we can be and seeing all we are, we do experience things unseen by a lot of other people around us. As in our story from Our Time for All Ages, we discover, as the author writes, I can be okay knowing not everyone will understand me because I have love for myself. I don't need to hide away, hold back, or compare myself to anyone else because I am me, and I matter. As I see and know history, it is always in process. If you read any historical overview of the LGBTQI plus community, their history, my history, you will discern that what is shared is always describing living in process of welcoming, in process of coming out, in process of recognizing the inner beauty of self, and certainly in the process of siding with love. This entire month of October, each and every year, holds within it National Coming Out Day, which is celebrated on October 11th. I am dressed, not only to be colorful, but I am dressed, and not only not to be naked, that would be really bad. I am dressed in what has become the national image of Coming Out Day. This image was designed by Keith Haring, who established a foundation for his ongoing impact with the gay community in New York. When Keith was diagnosed with AIDS in 1988, he designed this image and he made this statement, quote, "No matter how long you work, it's always going to end sometime. And there's always going to be things left undone. And it wouldn't matter if you lived until you were 75 or 100. There would still be new ideas. There would still be things that you wished you would have accomplished. You could work for several lifetimes. Part of the reason that I'm not having trouble facing the reality of my death is that it's not a limitation. It could have happened any time, and it is going to happen sometime. If you live your life according to that, death is irrelevant. Everything I'm doing right now is exactly what I want to do." Another convergent voice to celebrate this month. According to the Human Rights Campaign, the largest organization in our nation that supports LGBTQI people, this month was started in 1994 by a gay high school teacher, Rodney Wilson of Missouri, and some of his community members. It was founded with the hopes of giving all LGBTQI plus kids a chance Wilson never had to learn their history and see themselves in those who came before them. October was chosen as National Coming Out Month, National History Month, because of the Coming Out Day that's in the middle of it, and to put the spotlight on that and the creativity, the imagination, the wonder, all the gifts that Michael Bronsky talked about in our first reading. Welcoming and becoming are action-oriented verbs. Verb forms, actually, they're gerunds. English teacher, sorry. They challenge each of us to recognize our own processes involved in viewing and being aware of how welcoming actions invite others into our lives, and how that welcoming allows others to truly impact us. Welcoming and becoming work hand in hand, person to person, family to family, community to community. The LGBTQI community learned early that in order for our community to be acknowledged and honored at all, we had to reach folks through our relationships. We sat at kitchen tables to talk about being a lesbian, being a gay person, to allow people to know human beings, not just advertisements. The reaching out process from one person to another is exactly what built the membership of the Human Rights Campaign. Perhaps you have never been aware of all the ramifications associated with coming out. My own coming out was a gradual awakening, and it certainly was not a simple process, but as I've already noted many times with all of you, I am in process day in and day out. Some days the process goes well, some days the process is all thumbs down. The purpose for having a historical month, according to the multiple written records, is, quote, to let people see us, who we are, people they already like, know, and hopefully respect, who happen to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, queer, non-binary, all of it. In keeping with my challenge for us to recognize our own processes connected to this history, I ask you these three questions. How have you, or do you, support people who speak their truth, whatever that truth may be? How do you, as President Joel asked, make enough space to truly love your neighbor? And finally, how are you engaged in the historical context of this month? What are you challenging yourself to learn and then act upon? I am thrilled to be able to be here and to note that this community has deliberately chosen to be a welcoming one, to deliberately allow everyone to be present as they are, and to hold one another shoulder to shoulder in love. I have been a member of many church communities, many educational committees, and many religious communities as well. In all those contexts, I grew. I grew because I chose to be engaged actively and challenged by you, because I chose to be in process with my fellow travelers. I have always seen the connections between history, passion, and what I call the magic of love. I conclude where I began. I am passionate about being able to allow every person, regardless of labels we can affix to them, to have every person feel loved, respected, and acknowledged. I am able to be in front of you today as a strong, lesbian, ministerial, mystic woman, and I can claim that because of my personal commitment to this community and yours to me, because of our shared historical convergence, because you have acknowledged and supported me as me. My first partner, Carla, used to remind me often that there is magic in everyday living, especially when it comes to loving and being loved. So this day, I challenge each of you to create a brand new world, to help create the world where everyone can become all they are meant to be. A world where Universalists, Unitarians, Unitarian Universalists, Baha'i, Jewish people, you name it, all of us, are known as covenantal communities, communities that are always in the process of welcoming, where everyone is allowed to open each and every door they desire, coming in or going out, and where each and every one of the members of that community are always present, arm interlocked with arm, becoming the beloved community as it sides with love. May it always be so. Please join me now in singing our closing hymn, hymn number 1014. We are standing on the side of love. Together speak our unison benediction. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. And honor all beings. Please remain for our postlude.